A lot of people are familiar with the insane story about how the newsletter business Morning Brew sold to the Business Insider for $75 million. Now, this is crazy because all they did is build an email newsletter and then flip it for $75 million. Now, this exit took 5 years from start to finish to pull it off. I'm sure tons of blood, sweat, tears, and hard work to make it happen. But what if you could pull off your own multi-million-dollar email newsletter business exit faster and easier? That's exactly what Joe Polizzi did with his newsletter called The Tilt, and he did it in just 2 years. He launched back in 2021, grew it to 25,000 subscribers, and then sold it 2 years later in a six-figure deal. So let's take a look at that. I'll show that right here. So this is a case study for courtesy of theyGotAcquired.com. And this is a content founder sells his newsletter, and he actually sold it to one of his sponsors. So it goes over the whole process of how he built it start to finish. So we're going to get into that, and I'll tell you a lot more of exactly how he did it and how you can do a model just like this. And he's not the only one spinning up a newsletter and selling them fast. I looked at literally dozens of newsletter exits, and we've reverse engineered exactly how they went from zero to exit fast. Many of them actually, from the time they got started to when they flipped and sold for big profits, they did it in under 12 months. So by reverse engineering these stories, we found patterns that were common to all of these newsletter empires. And so we found out exactly what were the steps that they followed. And we created our own 9-step sequence that'll help you go from the idea in your mind all the way to flipping that business for a hefty profit in your pocket. So if you want the blueprint on how to start a newsletter business from scratch, then you need to watch all the way to the end. Let's get into it. Now, step one starts with your idea. And the first step in starting your newsletter business from scratch is to figure out what your newsletter is going to be about in the first place. So you don't really need to fixate on this step. I think a lot of people get stuck here trying to figure out the perfect topic, the perfect idea for their newsletter. So many people obsess about finding the perfect niche before they ever launch anything. Now, this keeps them from getting anything meaningful done. They're stuck here, and many of them never move on and start. So now, if anything, you can start, and if you get it wrong, you just pivot, and you can completely change the direction of your newsletter if you start in a niche that ends up being maybe not right for you. The newsletter Soap Hub is a perfect example of this. So let me show you that, and we'll talk about why that is. So it's a brand all about soap operas. It was founded in 2016, grew to 800,000 subscribers, and then was sold 2 years later for a high 7-figure valuation. So he walked away with millions of dollars after a couple of years work growing this newsletter. Now get this, the founder, Roman Van Meer, he knows nothing about soap operas. When he started, he hasn't even watched a soap opera, not even a single time. So this was a niche that he knew zero about, had no affinity for it, and still in 2 years, he sold this for almost $10 million. But if the niche is important to you, then you should apply a concept that I've covered on the channel before. It's called Ikigai. And this is all about how you find the things that you can have personal interest and passion in, but still make a heck of a lot of profit. And I've done a video on this topic, so I'll link it in the description below so you can watch that video. It's all about how to pick the perfect niche market where you have the perfect blend of passion, of interests, and money making all rolled into one. It's a quick video, and it'll walk you step by step on how to pick your niche market. Again, I'll link to it down below, right? But the point is, don't let picking a niche or the topic of your newsletter leave you stuck at the starting gate and you just never get started. That moves us to step number 2. I'm a big believer in this, and that is to just get launched. Launch a clunky, what's called MVP, or minimum viable product. So you want to get started with the most basic version of your product that you can possibly create to launch and test your idea so you can gather some feedback from your audience. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you have an idea that you want to make a newsletter that's all about finding the latest trends in toys and then buying and flipping them. I'll just use that as an example. That's actually a niche, by the way. In fact, my wife used to do it. She would get up early in the morning and wait in a line in front of toy stores and Targets and Walmarts and things like that to buy the latest trend, the latest fad of kids' products and toys, and then flip them. And she would make a hefty profit, right? So let's say you decided you wanted to do that as a newsletter topic, right? Just start. Create the newsletter, sign up for a service like Beehive, and start. Even if the newsletter is awful at the beginning, even if what you write about misses the mark. Let's say that your topic of what you're going to cover in this newsletter, you send a weekly episode to your subscribers and then you get feedback back that they don't like it, or maybe you're struggling with it. You just adapt, you just change, you just tweak. Let's say instead you find out you've got a lot of moms on your list, and now instead you just talk about the most trendy toys for them to get their kids as moms, and you no longer are going to be about profit, right? You're just going to talk about fun and trendy toys. That might be an example of just getting started, getting something out there from the most quickest, simplest ideas, and then pivot and adjust as time goes on, okay? So this gives you a chance to validate your idea. Instead of sitting around waiting to come up with the perfect one, just get it out there, validate it, and adapt and adjust as you go. Because I've seen this where people, they overthink it and they're so invested in the niche they pick and it doesn't work out right, and then they just give up. Instead, just throw it out there and be completely willing to adjust. So it's more important here that you want to prioritize speed. Money loves speed. You've heard me say that quite a lot. So you want to put speed over being perfect at this point. And because of that, the early version of your newsletter, it's going to be clunky. It's going to be probably not that good. It's probably going to suck, honestly. So as Ryan Reynolds talks about, launching products that suck. So the first version, as an example, so Milk Road, which is a multi-million-dollar success story of building and flipping that newsletter, they started out, it was just a Google Doc. So their first subscribers, they would create a Google Doc and then send it to their subscribers. It was ugly. It was awful. So here, this is an example of the Word doc that they used to send out to their first subscribers. And I really want to focus in because the details at this point are not that important. And he says right here, lesson, if you're not embarrassed by version 1 of your product, you have waited too long to launch. Very wise advice. The other thing is people will get really hung up here about trying to pick what technology should they use to send their newsletter. There are dozens of ways, if not hundreds of ways, for you to send the newsletters. Beehive is a tool that we use and is really effective. And in fact, down below, I'll put a link. It'll be our affiliate link, so we'll earn a small commission if you sign up there. But Beehive is an example of a platform that we use and I recommend. And I'd say just jump in and get started. There's ConvertKit, there's Beehive, there's services like Aweber, GetResponse. There are an endless sea of places to be able to host an email newsletter list, okay? So just pick any of them and they'll just get started. So as I said, the number one I would recommend is Beehive, okay? That's where we host our Ingeniosity newsletter, and that's what I would recommend. Which moves us on to step 3 of this process, and that is to beg for your first 1,000 subscribers. I think so many people are looking for some magical thing that's going to just work overnight and get them thousands and thousands of subscribers. But instead, you should be willing to do whatever it takes to get those first 1,000 subscribers. And so I'll give you some examples, but Paul Graham, he's the founder of Y Combinator, which is a very large, it's a startup incubator, which helps businesses start up and get flipped and sold for profit. And he says, do things that don't scale in the early stages of your business. So when your business is brand new, you'll do whatever it takes. I've seen really successful newsletters. They were literally going to college campuses and getting kids to write their email addresses on a notepad. And so that's what Paul means when he talks about do things that don't scale in the early stages. There's a blog post about this, and he goes on to about this very title. So let me show you that. A lot of would-be founders believe that startups either take off or they don't. You build something, make it available, and if you've made a better mousetrap, people will beat a path to your door as promised. Or they don't, in which case the market must not exist. Actually, startups take off because the founders make them take off. There may be a handful that just grew by themselves, but usually it takes some sort of push to get them going. A good metaphor would be the cranks that the car engines had before they got electric starters. Once the engine was going, it would keep going. But there was a separate and laborious process to get it going. So what does this mean for you? It means you're going to have to grind for your first 1,000 subscribers in ways that later on you probably won't do. But in the early stages, you'll do whatever it takes. And usually this means begging your friends, family, colleagues, if you're active in different social media groups or even out in the quote unquote real world, if you're part of networking groups. And once you're all out of friends and family, then yeah, social media is definitely the place to go. And a lot of people don't get past this stage because frankly, it sucks to try to go out there and grind this and get those subscribers. Now, if you have a budget and you have a little bit deeper pockets, there are some other solutions you can do to get your first subscribers. And I'll talk about those in a moment if you've got the budget to work into ads. But at the beginning, use your personal network and then use social media. And your begging is going to annoy people, right? It's going to be painful to get yelled at over and over again if you've been annoying people, right? Now, an example of this is a guy called Edwin Dorsey, and he has a newsletter called The Bear Cave, and let's take a look at it. And it's estimated that The Bear Cave, which is a newspaper about controversies and bad actors in business and finance, right? So it's about the bad guys in the business world. He brings in about $900,000 in sales a year from his 60,000 readers. And the founder of this, he's only 25 years old. In the very beginning, he went from 0 to 3,000 readers by cold messaging his followers on Twitter, begging them to sign up for his newsletter. And here is a quote here from him. I spent 3 days. My eyes started to hurt just DMing every Twitter follower, being like, sign up for this newsletter, please. That's what built the early momentum. I clawed my way to 3,000 free subscribers by October. Okay. So here, he literally by hand messaged every one of his followers. And that's what got him started, moving on to being a massive success. But that's the early stages of this. So I know a lot of people get into trying to find automated messaging platforms and things like this to try to solve this early on. But here, just good old-fashioned legwork can do the trick, okay? Now, another newsletter that I want to show you, which is AI with Vibes, did something very similar. So let's take a look at it. The founder started and sold this startup in just 7 months. He hit his first 1,000 subscribers by engaging in different Reddit communities. So he literally went on Reddit and different subreddit communities that are inside the Reddit website, and he just engaged with them. And he says that the key is to be scrappy and beg until you hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. And at this point, you can now pivot to what's called organic growth, which moves us on to step number 4. And organic growth, what we mean by this is by driving new users through unpaid traffic channels. So not paying money for ads, but rather how can you get free visitors to come and join your newsletter? There's an endless amount of different channels that you could choose from, and the best channel for you depends on your newsletter, what the topic is. A good example of organic growth is a newsletter called Alerts Daily. It's a newsletter about sneakers, actually. So it's about buying and flipping shoes. And so he has a community that all is centered around that. A newsletter by Laquan Lynch. Now, he started and sold his brand in just 11 months. He got 35,000 subscribers before he sold it. Now, the total amount of the deal is confidential. They haven't disclosed it. But based upon what we know of deals in the mergers and acquisitions world, I estimate that he sold for at least high 6 figures, maybe low 7 figures for his newsletter. And all of his subscribers came from organic social media growth. And there's a video from him I would like to share with you where he goes over exactly how he did that. So let's do this, and hopefully I think the audio should be coming through. So we'll play it and Let's take a look.
There was no paid ads. Alerts Daily newsletter was completely organic up until the point that it was purchased by Overtime. All of our subscribers came from organic social. A big driver of everything we did was short form video and things like that. Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. Basically all of the platforms that helped push out organic short form video. A subscriber rise, the total list was right around 40,000 with about 25,000 actives on it. The month over month growth was somewhere around like anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 subscribers.
So you can accomplish this simply by using many of the tactics that we teach here on the channel on using social media. And whether your social media platform of choice is Facebook, it's Twitter, could be Instagram, could be TikTok, like short form videos, like in his examples, but there's an endless sea of different places that you can do organic marketing. Pinterest might be another example, but we teach all about this on the channel. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and get more valuable information about how to actually get organic free traffic to your business so that you can get subscribers like this. Now, back to the task at hand, which is step number 5. So at this point, you should have some organic source of subscribers, again, whether that's from whichever of those channels. But there's a key here. If you do organic marketing like everyone else, maybe you'll go out and you'll get a click here, a click there, someone will come to your site, they'll sign up, and they'll join your newsletter. But where the magic happens is how could you get that one click? When they click, they come, they join your newsletter, and then they bring 2 of their friends. And those people bring 2 of their friends, and you get the viral effect. And businesses that can grow the fastest are the ones that can tap into this viral exponential growth. Now, ideally, your product is so high quality that your readers are going to want to share it and bring new readers in. This doesn't happen always by itself. Usually, it takes a little push and a little strategy. So if this doesn't happen for you, what you want to do is you want to establish a referral or giveaway program to incentivize your readers to share your newsletter with others. Now, one newsletter, for example, that did this strategy and they relied on giveaways. They did this to get growth. It's a newsletter called 1440. We've talked about it on the channel before, but it's a newsletter covering news and other current events. At this point, there are over 3 million subscribers, and they specifically talk about how they used a tool called Dojo Mojo. So it's DOJO-MOJO as a part of their strategy that they used to get that far. And let's take a look at that right now. So here is Dojo Mojo, and this was pretty cool. So this is a tool to get viral referrals and have tell-a-friend programs and leverage your audience to get more and more growth. Now, another example of this is the Morning Brew referral program. This is where readers were offered prizes and incentives for bringing in new subscribers. And this is something that works really well. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to give away high value, expensive things. All you need to do is make you can make a free report or additional materials, or you can make badges or awards that are just virtual. And that is enough to incentivize and get users referring their friends. And there's a lot more that we talk about with this as well. Viral marketing is something that I have done quite a lot of in my career as an entrepreneur. In fact, we have products that help people make their businesses go viral. So I'll talk more about that on the channel going into the future. So make sure you've subscribed and we'll cover this in more detail, but it's an important part. Now on to step 6 of this plan, and that is paid growth. So you can technically grow without using paid ads. You can use all the organic and viral strategies we've covered so far, but personally, I would always recommend using paid marketing if you can budget it. And we create a subscriber acquisition campaign is what we call this, where we run ads. For example, I've shown you on the channel here, the ads we're running on Twitter, from Twitter ads to newsletter subscribers. If you want to be one of these case studies that launches and exits in under a year, you really need to grow fast. So if you want to build up and flip a newsletter quickly, this is the way to do it. And the best way to attain this kind of growth is with paid ads. And that's what Milk Road did. So the founder of Milk Road, Ben Levy, he says running paid social media ads were key to growing his newsletter. Let me show you an example of that. So this was a case study in Beehive, actually. So Beehive is the platform that we recommend. So this was the case study from zero to acquisition in 10 months. This was a massive deal, multi-million-dollar deal. But I want to focus in, we'll zero in on this section down here. And he says here, while free acquisition is always preferred, some of the most successful newsletters in the world have tapped into more traditional acquisition channels, and Milk Road is no different. They did marketing spend primarily on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And here's what he said. He said they prioritize three things: how much we're paying to acquire a subscriber, the conversion rate of a subscriber to an active reader, and the payback period. How long does it take before you get that money back? For us, we were looking for payback period of 3 months or less. This means that if we were able to make 50 cents a subscriber per month, we would be willing to pay $1.50 to acquire that subscriber. Now, as an example, depending upon your niche you're in, it varies wildly. Like in some of my niches, we know that we generate about $4 per new subscriber in the first month. So we're willing to acquire a subscriber for $4 in cost. So if we can get someone to join our list for $4 and activate, actually become a reader, we know that we are going to make that $4 back in 30 days' time. And then we reinvest that $4 back for another round of subscribers. And we just keep rolling our budget in that way. And that's the way to grow your newsletter. And for example, on Twitter, we're able to acquire subscribers far under our 30-day break-even point. So we know we're getting the subscribers from Twitter, and we're able to monetize them in a way that we're getting our investment back within that first 30 days. Now, let's move on to step number 7. That is to collaborate. Okay, this is a big deal in the email world. And it's funny because this is a strategy. I've been around a long time doing digital entrepreneurship, and going way back in the early days of people growing their mailing lists, they used to do something called swaps, where you would promote each other, right? One email list owner would promote another email list owner, and you go back and forth and share your subscribers in a sense. And that has now become the dominant way to grow these newsletters. It's by collaboration with other newsletters like yours. So if they have an audience that are like yours, you can work together to promote one another's newsletter, and you get a chance to get in front of their audience, and they get a chance to get in front of your audience, and you're trading subscribers. And this can be really effective. And I've seen people be resistant to this because they're worried about, like, they don't want to lose their subscribers to the competition. But if it's a good collaboration and you're getting subscribers back, it is always a net positive. And there's a lot of ways to collaborate with others. And we're talking about list swaps where they promote and collaborate with one another. You can also do guest spots, interviews, a lot of ways to do this. Podcasts are a great way to talk about people back and forth. And they're great because it's an easy way to get your content and your message out there without having to make your own stuff. Like, you can bring somebody else in front of your audience and let them deliver the content. And you get to build business relationships. So as you're building relationships, as you network and collaborate with others in your niche, you may find that that's how you exit. And there's actually a real world example of this. There are 2 newsletters that did a swap back in 2022. They swapped and did a cross promotion of one another. Then a few months went by, and one of the newsletters actually bought out the other one. They met through their collaboration, and then one ended up having some deep pockets and just bought out the other newsletter completely, and he cashed out. So let's take a look at this. I've got a post here that I want to show you. We'll take a quick look at that. Okay, here's an example. He had a newsletter and he said, first I became a reader, then I did a swap back in 2022. In January, I asked about his plans, his goals, and if he'd consider selling. At first it looked unlikely, but then we got closer and closer, and then we signed an agreement. So this is pretty crazy. There's a nice little article here about why newsletters are a great thing to acquire, like for buying businesses. So by collaborating and getting to know others in your niche and in your field, it opens the door to all kinds of future marketing, future promotions, and you just might find your buyer by doing that. Now, at this stage, you need to be thinking about one thing, and that is you have to graduate your product. Your product is your newsletter and the content you send to your subscribers. And remember I told you before, you want to launch a clunky minimum viable product at the beginning. Now you definitely have to move beyond that. You want to move beyond the early minimum viable product, and instead you want to optimize what you're doing so that it fits exactly what your audience wants. And so if you get feedback from your audience that they're interested in particular topics, then you start covering those topics. If you get feedback that they like certain types of emails, particularly if you look at your stats and, hey, every time I talk about this particular topic, or every time I format my emails in a particular way, we get more opens, we get more clicks, people seem happier. So you want to be constantly tweaking and adapting and improving your business to make it better and better. And now here, once you've got to this stage, you've got subscribers, you've got momentum, you've got some activity going, and now you can start to look at how do you streamline and make it simple? How do you make your content creation simple? How do you make sure you're using the best technology and you're sending from the best place for whether you're using Beehive or maybe some other tool? This is where you polish and improve and systemize the business, because you want to have a clean, healthy, and in-demand newsletter so that when you show a potential buyer, because remember, we're trying to exit. We want to flip this business and we want a buyer to come in and give us a hefty price tag so we can exit. But if your newsletter is, buggy, it doesn't get in anybody's inboxes, you're getting complaints, and overall it just sucks. Let's say you get more people unsubscribing than you have subscribing and your newsletter is shrinking, no one's going to want to buy that. So if you have a growing newsletter that's streamlined, that your audience likes, now you can flip and make a lot of money. And when you dial in, it's time to sell. And that leads us to the final cash out, where we're going to see the big profits. Now, up until this point, your business is probably, your newsletter is probably making profits. You're probably getting money in your pocket each month by this time, and you're making a profitable business. Now, you could just keep it and just keep running that newsletter and keep pocketing that profit month after month, or you can exit. And that's where the big payoff comes. So once it's time to sell, you now can use the network you've built. Remember, you've been collaborating with others in your market. So you can go to them and start talking about the fact that you're interested in selling your newsletter business. The other thing you can do is go to a marketplace. So there are marketplaces like Flippa. There's a site called Acquire. I really like the marketplace called Deuce. D-U-C-E, and it specializes in buying and selling newsletter businesses. Let me show you. So here's Deuce, and the entire purpose of this website is for being able to buy or sell a newsletter. So it's a very interesting marketplace. It's really dialed into that. Now, I have noticed that, for example, Flippa now has a category. All newsletters actually have their own unique category on Flippa. And so you can go to Flippa, which is FLIPA.com, and you can find newsletters for sale there as well. And I check Deuce for newsletter deals pretty regularly ourselves. So I am actually in the market of buying newsletters. So I'll buy newsletters and absorb them into my little mini empire here. So if I find a good newsletter that's in a niche that I'm in, I might buy it and absorb it in and make it become part of my larger business model. And who knows, maybe I'll be the person that acquires your business, right? So your newsletter, when you go to flip it, who knows, maybe I'll buy it. Especially if you put it on Deuce, then I'll probably see it. I've got one last case study for you. I just want to throw this in here at the end because I think it's a powerful, important lesson. And it's about this guy, Brian Kelly. He started a newsletter called The Points Guy. It's about how you rack up travel points on your credit cards. So you think about using credit cards to get cash back, points, miles, all those kinds of things. He launched it, grew it super fast, and he sold it to Bankrate, which is a finance media company. In just 2 years, he built it up and flipped it for $20 million. We found a huge comprehensive, it's an 11-page report all about the deal. And I'll link to it down in the description. You need to join our free newsletter, by the way. So you join our free newsletter down below. And this is another example of some of the content, the free content we'll be sharing with you. So we'll link to it. Join the newsletter. We'll share that out, that content and much more with you totally for free. And you can see that link down below if you would like to get that additional case study. And that wraps us up with the newsletter content for today. If you like more content like this, we constantly are talking about newsletters. I am a big fan of newsletters as either a business model in and of themselves or something that you should add to your existing business. And we talk about them all the time. So if you'd like more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. You'll see that down below. Make sure, tap the little bell icon and tell YouTube you want to get your notifications because they don't always give them to you unless you tap the bell on that subscribe button and tell YouTube you want all the notifications. We have lots more content about acquiring newsletter subscribers, getting traffic, turning that into money and then selling these businesses ultimately. And then, of course, if you got value from this training, tap the like button. You'll see that down below. It helps feed the YouTube algorithm so that YouTube knows to share our stuff with lots of people just like you. And of course, if you have any questions, feedback, commentary, drop them in the comments down below. I'm always watching, reading, and trying to help the audience as much as I can. But that wraps us up for today. We shall see you next time. Bye for now. So for those of you who are not yet a PushButton AI customer, then you need to check this out. And all you need to do is go to pushbutton.ai/demo, pushbutton.ai/demo, and you can get a live one-on-one appointment to get on Zoom and see this powerful technology in action. And with PushButton AI, it will build an entire business from bottom to top. Everything you need, from your domain name to your logo to videos to audio lessons, an entire course that you can sell as your own, a 30-day email sequence that it writes. You can send a daily email for 30 days, all written by AI, and a whole lot more. It writes your sales page. If you're not sure how to write an expert sales page to convince people to buy stuff, it writes it for you. It writes a free report that you can give away to get subscribers to your list. It even creates and writes the opt-in subscription page to get people to subscribe to get the free report. And it goes on and on and on. It even writes your first 10 blog posts for you, and it can do so much more. Social media posts, ads, all of these things are done, and all you have to do is answer a couple of questions and push a button. Now, PushButton AI is not available to the public at the time of recording this video. And the only way to get in is by invite to our behind-the-scenes beta access. And during your live demo, we'll show you the technology. We'll actually work with you to actually map out an entire course that you could sell as your own. We'll outline the course with you together on the one-on-one Zoom call. And then if you so decide, if you're a good fit, you can come in, join our PushButton AI beta program, and be in business with that very course by the next day. Go to pushbutton.ai/demo to figure out if this powerful technology is right for you. You can register there. You'll book an appointment in the calendar. Be sure you show up. Our team will be very excited to meet you and show you how the tech works, outline your new course for you, and hopefully it's a fit and we can work together to launch your next business.